Hey everyone, I'm recording this on Sunday, September 21st at around 3:40-ish your time, 5:40-ish my time. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started for the lecture today. Mhm. All right, let me go ahead and get into slideshow. Awesome. So this is week 6. Welcome to week 6, everyone. So I've got the check-in today. If you have a piece of paper and a pen ready, I'm going to do a 1-minute writing exercise with y'all. And if you wait just a second, I'm going to give you your prompt. You can always pause this too if you need to grab a pen and paper. During the darkest days of the AIDS crisis, we buried our friends in the morning, we protested in the afternoon, and we danced at night. The dance kept us in the fight because the dance was what we were fighting for. So this is a quote from Dan Savage. He's a journalist, an LGBTQ plus activist, and he and his husband started the It Gets Better project. I don't know if y'all have seen those videos, but especially right now, it can be very difficult to find the motivation to get up in the morning and to do social work in particular, to work with our clients, to work at our agencies. Um, no matter what the work is that we're doing, it's a pretty rough kind of world right now. And so I wanted to share this quote because it came up in one of the videos that I was watching recently. And I figure it would be nice to just kind of take a minute and figure out what's your version of the dance? What are you passionate about? What are you fighting for? What do you fight for? What brings you joy? So I'm going to give you a minute now, and you can always pause me if I come back a little too quickly, because I try to make these videos a bit quicker if you want to write some more, but I'm going to do this with you. Okay, that is 1 minute. You can always pause me if you need to. If you want to do a little bit more kind of free writing. Um, but yeah, I figured that would be a nice kind of way to start our time together. Some general reminders. Your individual meeting with me is due by Monday, October 20th. So sign up for time via Calendly. I've had 4 folks meet up with me and complete that one-on-one, and I've got 3 scheduled so far. So that's over half of y'all, I think, that I still need to get on my schedule. I did add some times, some weekend times. Just to give you a little bit more of wiggle room if scheduling is a bit of an issue just for the times that I had available before. I promise I don't bite, and I promise it goes by pretty quickly. It's in case you have any questions, but also just for me to get to know you a bit and you to get to know me a bit, make it a little less kind of, I don't know, impersonal. Uh, You've got your weekly assignments and activities. I mentioned in the announcement that the ethics corner is kind of a bit on hold right now. We're a bit behind. The lead faculty just is, you know, also going through stuff this semester, so it's been a bit rough to keep up on these. So if you have any particular ethical questions or topics that you would like me to try to address in future modules, please send me your ideas. I would love to hear from y'all. Y'all have assigned partners, and now I've also assigned peer groups for the second assignment that's coming up. That's not due until November 10th, but you're gonna want to get together with your peer group, or at least start exchanging some times and ideas for info. Um, the first meeting that I'm doing, the optional synchronous Zoom meeting, is tomorrow. So Monday, September 22nd at 6 p.m. your time, 8 p.m. my time. I will record that session. I'll put that up in the, I'm creating a new module that is going to be just at the top when you click modules. That'll have everything assignment related. I've also got some examples for y'all as well. So look forward to that. So this week 6, we're going to be talking about assessing and working with families. So just going to start off with some thoughts to consider. Our use of language, which this is not just with families, but in general. Assessing dynamics, family dynamics in particular, types of family therapy that can be helpful, and different kinds of family supports. I'm not going to have a lot of time to go into detail, so what I'm going to do is drop in the PowerPoint that has hyperlinks. So I'll put this in with the same the page there, so that y'all have access to that if you want to dive a little deeper. Okay. I also wanted to mention too, I know there's a lot of folks in this class who are working with children and families in particular. So if y'all have thoughts, if I get something wrong, if you think of something better, a lot of this content I've borrowed from Dr. Perry, but I've also started working with families myself and have worked with families in the past as well. Some of these things are more applicable in certain situations than in others. But you know, it's good to, again, we're generalists, at least in this program. So, you know, at least we'll have the knowledge, right? So some initial thoughts to consider. Oftentimes families are stuck in patterns that they never intended to be in. Um, the world right now is really rough, you know. Our society is not really set up to allow families to be successful, to allow parents, especially of young children, to be able to parent effectively, or you know, as much as be as involved as they would like to be in raising kiddos. It's difficult. It's really difficult, especially when folks have to work multiple jobs just to pay bills, let alone be able to spend time with family, and even really just kind of develop that quality time and relationship that they're wanting to. Um, when a youth is using substances, we need to look at the family. Dr. Carl Hart mentioned that in a quote. Usually, I'll get to this actually this point when we get a little further down. Um, Individual therapy, like nobody exists in a vacuum. Like we grow up in the context of something resembling family. So when we're working in individual therapy, like one-on-one, we're working within the context of what family is or what it means now. Um, or the client's past experiences with family. We all carry that kind of baggage with us, and that lens and framework of what family is, you know, kind of as we grow into adulthood. And it influences our lives and our relationships as we, you know, grow up and get older, even when we're kids, you know. I truly honestly believe that nobody wants to be like a bad parent or a bad child. I don't think that like exists. Um, my biggest thing that I want y'all to take away from this course, and I may have already said this before or said a big thing before that I wanted you to take away, but at least in this lecture, is that the skills, like we use the skills, the coping mechanisms that we have available and accessible to us until we are given or we see or we obtain better skills or coping mechanisms. So until we have the resources or the education or the practice or the ability or capacity to even learn better or different skills, it's impossible really for us to think or hope that our clients or their families would make different choices, you know? So just know that, best intent, assume best intent, and just know that people are making choices for a reason. And it's usually because they need to, or not they need to, but this is what has been available and accessible to them over and over, Um, if we're able to educate them more about resources and things, or be able to give them more capacity to be able to do things a different way, then they may be able to make different choices. And again, we don't get to choose what that is, right? Like the goal is empowerment, right? They get to tell us what the goal is, and we get to help them get there. So use of language throughout therapy and just whatever interaction that we're having with whatever clients, again, meso macro language is so important. Um, the ideal situation is to use whatever language the person in front of you or the people in front of you are using. Um, however they define themselves, however they define their family relationships or structure. Um, we want to utilize that language as long as it's not, disparaging. And also ask them, don't be afraid to ask, like, how do you want to be addressed? Like, how do you feel about this label, or something for me, being now in the world where I have to diagnose folks. I'm talking to them about the DSM a little bit, about just like, what have you been diagnosed with before? How does that sit with you? Does it feel right to you? Talk to me about how this like landed for you, or having that kind of label feels to you. When we're talking families, we don't want to say mom and dad. We don't want to assume that there is like more than one parent or guardian involved. We also don't want to have a heteronormativity bias. So like mom, dad, mother, father assumes gender and assumes that there's a couple. Um, Again, it's often assumed that there's a heterosexual marriage involved. Um, you know, you could say parents, caregivers, partner, your adult, who's your adult? Or do you have adults? Whatever language feels natural to use. And again, like use the language that they're using in the room with you. We don't want to, play into cisexism. So, especially with children and parents, they're often assumed to be whatever gender, they might be presenting as cisgender, right? So you can try child, kid, children, adults, parents, kiddos. Um, you know, um, Even saying like brother, sister, mom, dad, right? Like we want to try to be more generic in our language until we start hearing the language that our clients are using, and then we can, incorporate that in the room. Separation and divorce, like folks have multiple parents or homes. So you can say family members, households, tell me about your households. Um, Tell me about your chosen family. Not everybody is in touch with their biological families. Some folks have a chosen family, or grow up in a group setting, as opposed to like um, having a mom, like a mom and dad seat. I'm actually using that language now. Having like a parent or two parents in a household. Some grow up in a neighborhood where everybody watches everybody, right? Like, there are lots of different types of families out there. And, we don't want to use language that reinforces these norms. We want to give room for everybody to show up authentically. Adoption, there's this helpful article that I've linked for suggested language around if you've got like a child who's been adopted. uh, just a note there, like pointing out family resemblance can be particularly distressing for adopted kids, bi or multiracial kids, stepkids, and kids conceived with donated genetic material. Um, and of course, don't forget strengths, right? um, Make sure you're talking with them about like what's going well, what do you like about each other? Like what's your favorite thing about this person? Um, and some asterisks around language. Language is constantly shifting and changing, so do your best to stay up to date. Um, a reminder that you don't need to be perfect or get it right every time. Um, Sometimes the most uh, impactful thing we can do is mess up and then own up to it and show, like, model the behavior of how to take ownership of a mistake and then build trust back over time. Um, and then, as I said before, as much as possible, assume best intention. Okay. That everybody in the room is wanting what's best, you know? It certainly doesn't always feel that way, but I don't know. It's the thing that has kind of carried me through. Whatever best means to them in their head, that's what they're striving for. Sometimes it's just trying to get everybody on the same page about what that is, you know? Um, so there are different ways of assessing family dynamics. I feel like, you can talk to each person individually. You can get folks in the room together. Like, it's important to get everybody's understanding and perspective. A lot of the same stuff that we would ask an individual, we're going to ask the family, but like in the context of them as a family. So, like a family as a unit, who all's involved, what's the history, and not just like the biological, but like the family history. So the genogram, I think that was in the reading from last week, I want to say. It might have even been this week. No, I think it was last week. The stages of change. So if we want to change, there are actually I think it's 5 stages of change, technically six. So I've got the link there if you want to read more about that. Self-regulation, family roles, culture, values, and beliefs, strengths, their challenges and growth areas, um, family exploration questions. There's tons of them online, but just trying to really understand what's important to the family and what each individual's goals are and how to kind of maybe either reframe or get everybody kind of on the same page and working towards the same objective can be huge. Distress, trauma, and oppression. Obviously, we want to consider the different things that folks have been through. Family members, for example, if we've got folks who are, undocumented, we've got folks in the family who, immigration status is different, for different generations of a family. We want to make sure that if there's particular stressors that are impacting, folks who are in the parental or guardian role, that, kids are very perceptive. Like, even if we try to avoid talking about things around them, they're aware of something going on. They're aware that something's not right, and it can become easy to blame oneself as opposed to, you know, trying to, like as a kid, you don't always know that you can ask or that there is a way of understanding it at your level, at a kid's level. Um, so, for example, coming from hospice, a lot of parents would struggle with how to talk to their children about death and dying for the first time if a grandparent is passing or if another loved one or somebody who's close in the family is passing. Like, how do you talk about death and dying, especially if there's not a faith or religious practice in the picture? um how do you make it like accessible but also not scary, right? Because kids know that something's happening, but to then avoid the topic, then it becomes even more of a like a thing, like it becomes more of a taboo thing that the kids try to avoid because they don't want to upset the parents, and the parents try to avoid so they don't upset the kids. But then the whole thing is like nobody's talking about the thing that's upsetting us all in the first place. And so what does that accomplish, you know? Um, Privilege. Especially with folks who are coming from different backgrounds, like couples, we don't always grow up in the same neighborhood. I think especially now everybody moves around a lot. It's kind of rare to see somebody who has been born in a city and stayed in that city for their whole lives. So getting to understand where everybody has come from, their past experiences, what was it like for the parents when they were growing up, you know? What was their dynamic growing up? What was the expectation when they were a kid? What did their families go through, and how are they bringing that into their understanding of this family together, and what's important? Um, Power and communication and boundaries. Um, Making sure that everybody has their place kind of in the family, and also, that parents are kind of on equal footing if there's two or more parents in the picture. If there's many adults in the picture, is everybody kind of feeling like they're on even ground? Does everybody feel like they can talk to each other? And then obviously, case management stuff, providing access to care and resources, or assessing also what their access is right now and if they need additional resources or referrals, that kind of thing. And I know this is all kind of vague, but we can kind of get more into specifics if there are specific questions that y'all have or want me to touch on, like topics, either through like the ethics corner, or if y'all want to have me kind of do little videos on some specifics. Um, let's see here. So there are different types of family therapy that, again, these are kind of just some very, very light touch points for you to dive into a little bit further if you'd like. Solution focused family therapy. So, solution focused therapy is short term, it is very specific, and it's about achieving a particular goal. Um, so the basic premise is that the best ways to or to provide services to a child is through strengthening and empowering the family as a unit. So they very much go into like what's worked in the past and what strengths, can we all lean on, and build from. There's conjoint family therapy, where the basic premise is that families, in general, or a family that may need support, labels a member as, the identified client or the problem, right? Usually there's like one kid in particular that's struggling, um, and that person is believed to be holding back the family from kind of living their best life. The intervention there would be family reconstruction. So if it's all the kid's fault, then everybody's like, kind of hands off, like you need to fix yourself. But it's usually an environmental thing, right? There are things we can all be doing to support each other and this individual who's struggling, without, getting too messy about it. But like, this is like this is a team effort. This is not a one person situation. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but usually there's like a group effort involved there. So family reconstruction is like getting everybody again on the same page. Structural family therapy, the basic premise there is that a family is a system composed of subsystems. So, you want to disrupt the current structure. You want to make sure that there are boundaries in place. There are other interventions like enactment, reframing, and punctuation, which again, you can dive into a little bit more. Just, I can get resources if y'all are interested in these in particular. Family support. So we've talked about the genogram, um, individual therapy, kind of one-on-one therapy, can be helpful if people are struggling in particular. You can teach motivational interviewing skills for folks, in the family. You can also teach parenting skills. I mean, like I said earlier, society is not set up to make parenting easy to be successful. It's not something that we are taught. It's not something that we are given resources for or support for. I think we're like the US is the only major country, first world country that does not guarantee maternity or paternity leave, um, which is like, you know, if we're worried about the population decreasing, over time, we're not making it easy for kids to be born because, childcare is not taught, uh, is not paid for, by the states or the federal government, right? So um, there are skills that can be taught and learned and implemented. Sorry, my cat. um, and there's a way of presenting these things like that doesn't sound like it's a bad thing, right? We're not trying to blame anybody for not having these skills. Like nobody teaches these skills, right? We're not taught these growing up. So, especially if we're coming from a traumatic background, it can be a hard thing to hear, like, oh, I'm teaching parenting skills. It's like, no, 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 no. It's not about you. It's not something you did wrong. It's that, as a society, we don't learn these things and we're not taught these things. And so there's some basic ways of communicating that de-escalate a situation. Or, if your kiddo is experiencing a breakdown or a tantrum, depending on their developmental stage, these things are normal, or these are things you might want to kind of look out for in case we need to do some testing or in case the kiddo needs additional support, like in school or at daycare or what have you. Um, I also want to mention Cartman's uh, drama drama triangle, which, the language that they use is like victim, perpetrator, and rescuer, which uh, Dr. Perry had changed the verbiage to victim, victimizer, and bystander. Um, so there's a link there, and windows of tolerance when we're talking about trauma. So those are some links you can dive into a little bit more if you're wanting some more information. So I hope this has kind of helped. Again, I know it's weird and vague, kind of lecturing about these ideas without us all being in a same kind of internship situation or working with similar clients. But I hope that these kind of ideas and skills, you're able to see how they might be applicable as far as what you might be able to use them for in the room with folks, and at like a meso macro level too, like an organization. I mean, how many times have you heard a job say like, oh, we're like a family here, right? It's like, okay, well, it's a dysfunctional family. um but yeah, so I'm gonna try to get lectures 7 and 8 recording up today and tomorrow. um Please let me know if you have any questions. You know how to get a hold of me. And hopefully I'll see some of y'all at the first optional synchronous Zoom meeting where we're going to talk about the assignments. I promise they're not that bad. They look really ridiculously complicated, but they're not that bad. I promise. All right. Have a good week, and you'll see me again soon. Bye now.